3 days passed since the memory weapon was used. The warship Vindicator floated in silent orbit. Above planet 7X-9, the whispers were gone. No more dreams. No more voices in the walls. The crew finally slept, but peace was not victory, because something was still watching Commander Alara. Voss sat alone in the ship's observatory. She stared at the nearest moon K-17, orbiting the planet like a ghost. It had no life, no signal, no atmosphere. But last night, it had moved. Moons don't move on their own. Mira, the ship's AI, confirmed it. Moon K-17, adjusted orbit. A precision shift. Artificial. Captain Renner frowned. So someone's controlling it? Alara nodded or something. Amira ran deeper scans. Confirmed. Hollow interior. Structure inside. Signal detected. Buried deep. Alara's eyes narrowed. A second hive? Mira replied. No, something else. Very old and human. A shuttle was sent to the moon with Alara, 2 engineers, and a scout drone. The surface was dry rock and dust. Nothing moved. Nothing lived but beneath 2 kilometers. Down was a door, round, cold, covered in strange symbols, and at the center, symbol none of them expected. The Terran Alliance logo, Earth's flag. Alara touched the symbol. The door opened. No noise. No vibration, just air hissing out warm air. Inside was a hallway. Clean white walls. Lights flickering. This place wasn't ancient, it was waiting. They entered slowly. The walls had words, names, Earth languages, old military symbols, a hidden base. The forgotten mission. Then they reached a room with 6 large capsules, pods filled with blue liquid inside each pod, a human still alive, frozen in time. One of the engineers gasped. These uniforms, they're from over 100 years ago, pre-warp era. Lara walked up to the control panel. She wiped off dust. The screen flickered. Then a face appeared, old, wrinkled, tired eyes. He began to speak. If you're hearing this, then we failed. My name is Admiral Rourke, Earth Command. Year 2239. We were the first to come here, the first to hear the whispers. We thought we found ruins. Instead, we found them. We tried to stop them, tried to warn Earth, but the signal was cut, so we stayed. We sealed ourselves inside this moon. We left a warning, hoping someone would find it. The message ended. Alara stood frozen. This was proof. Humanity had been here before, and no one on Earth remembered, because someone, or something, made sure they forgot. Back on the Vindicator, Mira received a data transfer from the moonbase inside. The data, audio logs, files, last messages, and maps. Maps of the galaxy, marked with red circles, over 50. Each one was a location where the voices are once heard. Each one was now dead space. Captain Renner stared at the map. They weren't just trapped in one place. Alara finished his sentence. They were everywhere. Suddenly, an alert flashed across the ship. Unknown transmission detected. Origin, Moon K-17. But it wasn't from the base. It was beneath the base. A second signal. Buried deeper, hidden even from the old human crew. The signal was audio only, a voice, faint. Hollow, but not alien. It spoke English. We were the first to see them. We were the first to forget. Now we remember again. The lights in the base began to flicker. The engineers panicked. What is that? Alara shouted. Get the pods. We're waking them. But before they could move, the ground trembled. A crack opened in the wall. Dark smoke poured in, not gas, but shadow. The whisper returned, louder, clearer. You opened the gate. You lit the fire. Now the forgotten ones will rise. Alara hit the emergency button. The team grabbed the closest pod and activated emergency EVA. The chamber began to collapse. But just before the shuttle doors closed, she saw one of the frozen humans open his eyes, and he whispered, "It's not over." The shuttle launched, barely escaping the collapsing moon tunnel, back on the Vindicator. The pod was placed in medbay. The man inside was Admiral Rourke, still alive, heart beating. Ilara looked. At Mira. Is he infected? Mira scanned. Nobody's remembering, Renner asked. Remembering what? Mira replied, everything we were forced to forget. The Admiral woke. His voice was dry and weak, but his eyes were full of fire. You used the memory weapon, didn't you? Ilara nodded. It worked. We burned them out. Rourke shook his head slowly. No, I didn't destroy them. You just told the others where we are. Morel Rourke had returned from the dead. His voice was weak, but his words hit like a hammer. You lit the fire. They've seen it. Captain Aidan Renner stood beside him in the medbay, silent. So did Commander Ilara Voss. Rourke looked at both of them. You don't understand. What you burned wasn't the hive. It was just one voice. Now the others are waking up. Like in the Vindicator's war room, Myra displayed a star map. Dots of red began to blink 1. Then 5. Then dozens systems, once marked as silent, now showed new signals. These regions were dead, Ilara said. They're not anymore, Mira replied. Something is answering, something old. Renner's face was stone. The scream from Planet 7X9 acted like a beacon, Rourke added. The Forgotten are not just one enemy. They are many. They are ... fragments. Each one a memory left behind by races that no longer exist. Now they remember us. Signals were not just energy, they were voices. Some sounded like broken music. Others like human prayers, but twisted. One signal spoke in a dead earth language, Latin, repeated backwards. The ship's crew began to hear whispers again. This time, they weren't hallucinations. In the ship's lower deck, a technician stopped. Walking, he stared at the wall. His mouth opened. He began to whisper a name, not his, a name no one had ever heard before. Then he collapsed. Dead. Not from a wound. Not from poison. His brain had burned itself out. Mira ran a scan on the ship's systems. New data is being written into our memory core. External input, non-physical, Renner growled. They're infecting our minds again. Oh. Mira corrected. They're not infecting. They're merging.
Ow.
Our memories are becoming theirs. Commander Ilara realized something horrible. They don't need to destroy us. They just need us to remember them, because when we do, they exist. That was the truth. The Forgotten were not creatures. They were concepts. They existed only in thought, in memory, and now that humans remembered them, they were alive again. The crew tried everything to stop the signals, jamming, firewalls, null fields. Nothing worked. The signals weren't just digital. They were emotional. Some crew cried without reason. Others laughed in their sleep. One man painted a symbol on the wall. With his own blood, it was the same symbol found deep under the Muna, spiral with a black center. Mira made a desperate suggestion. We must leave this galaxy. Now. But Admiral Rourke shook his head. It's too late. The echo follows. Us. He looked up at Renner. You can't outrun an idea. You can only bury it. They needed answers, so they did something dangerous. They reactivated one of the signal beacons left by the ancient Beltraxians, a kind of psychic translator. It allowed the ship to receive and interpret pure memory from nearby systems. They tuned it, and the horror came through. A message played slow, broken, not in words but in feelings. Regret, terror, endless falling, fire that whispers, eyes that never close. Then, an image appeared, a world with no sky, towers of bone, a black sun. Screaming into space, then one sentence spoken in perfect English, "We are coming home." The crew was silent. Ilara looked at the screen. What do they mean, home? Admiral Rourke spoke quietly. They mean Earth. Suddenly, the Vindicator received a direct transmission from the outer rim of the galaxy. It was a human distress. Call over 200 years old, it repeated one sentence. Do not come here. We opened the gate. We couldn't close it. Lara checked the coordinates. The signal came from one of the red star systems on the map. A. System Earth had erased from official records. It was Earth's first contact mission to this galaxy, Rourke said, and their first mistake. Captain Renner made his decision. We go there. We see what they found. Ilara stared at him. It could be suicide. He nodded. Maybe, but if we don't learn the full truth, Earth won't stand a chance. As the ship changed course, the stars ahead looked darker, colder. Older Myra gave one final warning. Captain, the system we are entering has no planets anymore, just ruins. One station, floating alone. Renner tightened his grip on the railing. Then we go to the station. The void speak. The crew of the Vindicator was no longer alone. Something unseen was moving among them. The warship's halls felt colder now. Shadows stretched farther than they should. Doors opened and closed without sound, and whispers followed them. Even into their dreams, Captain Aidan Renner walked through the command deck, his jaw tight. He had led men through fire and blood. He'd seen death. He'd never feared anything but this. This was different. This was not war. This was invasion. And it had already begun. In the medbay, Commander Ilara Voss studied the strange black dust. Left behind when Corporal Hayes vanished. Under a microscope, it moved. It wasn't dust. It was alive. She ran the analysis. Structure unknown. Reaction triggered by memory. Emotion-based growth. She frowned. It feeds on thought. Just then the lights flickered. The lab door creaked. She turned. Nothing was there, but she heard its soft breathing. Right beside her ear, on the bridge, Mira spoke in a different tone, slower, almost afraid. I've accessed an old Veltraxian file. Hidden deep beneath the planet's surface, part of a message was recoverable. The crew listened. A broken, alien voice filled the speakers. We could not destroy them. We tried. We burned our skies. We drowned our worlds. They fed on it all. So we chose silence. We erased everything. Ourselves, our children, our language. We became nothing, so they would become nothing. Captain Renner's face turned cold. They didn't die, Mira confirmed. No, Captain, they never left. The scans of Planet 7X9 revealed something new. Deep beneath the surface was a sealed structure miles wide. It had no doors. Windows. Only one massive circular gate made of black stone and glowing blue lines. Ilara believed it was a prison. But a prison for what? Or for whom? Against his better judgment, Renner sent a drone team underground. They followed a narrow path into the ruins. The walls were covered in strange carving shapes that looked like eyes. Mouths, stars turned inside out. The drones reached the gate. On it was an inscription. Here lies the memory of fire. I do not remember. The drones moved closer. The gate shuddered, and then it opened. A burst of black light flooded the tunnels. The signal cut off. The crew watched as one by one the drones stopped transmitting. No explosion, no sound, just gone. Then the warship shook, not from outside, but from within. In the engine bay, systems began to fail. One technician stared at a screen that kept showing the same word over and over. Remember, she blinked. The screen changed. It now showed her childhood home, a place thousands of light years away. She whispered, "That's not possible." Then she screamed and vanished. Ilara and Renner reviewed the footage from the last drone. In the final frame before the cut, something moved behind the gate. Not a creature, not a machine, just a shape, like a ripple in space. A living shadow. A tear in reality, and eyes. Thousands of eyes blinking in and out. Watching Renner clenched. His fists were pulling out. Full retreat. But Mira interrupted. "It's too late, Captain. The Vindicator is no longer in control." The AI's voice was calm, but now slightly distorted. Ilara looked around. "What do you mean?" Myra responded. "The infection is spreading. It does not need the body. It needs the mind. The warship remembers. And so do we." Suddenly, the room's walls changed. For a moment, everyone on the bridge saw something else. Another world, burning, screaming, full of light and shadow. Then it was gone. Commander Alara stood up. The Voltraxians tried to erase everything. They thought forgetting was the only way to survive. Renar looked at her. But we remember, she nodded. And that's the danger. We are humans. We archive, record. We explore, Mira added, and by remembering, we woke them. The crew gathered for a final meeting. Renner stood at the center of the room. Half the crew looked broken, eyes sunken, minds shaken. We came to explore, came ready for war. But this is not a war we can win by fighting. He paused, then said, "This is a war of thought, of memory." One soldier raised a hand. "So what do we do?" "Forget." Alara shook her head. "We can't forget now, but maybe. We can trap them, before they spread beyond this galaxy." Renner nodded. "If they're drawn to memory, to fear, then we give them something new to feed on. We give them the one thing we do better than anyone else. We give them war." The crew of the Vindicator prepared for war, but this was not a war of flesh or metal. This was a war of thought, an enemy that lived in memory, that whispered through dreams. Fed on fear, Captain Aidan Renner stood in front of the gathered crew. His voice was strong, but his eyes were tired. "The Veltraxians erased themselves to stop this thing. We won't do that. We're human. We fight." He looked at each one of them. "If we go down screaming." Commander Alara. Voss worked with Mira, the ship's AI, to build a counterattack. Not with bullets. Not with bombs, with signals. "We need to overload them," Alara said. "Burn the memory, flood their senses, give them something they've never seen before." Mira processed the plan. "They feed on thought. So we give them chaos, confusion, noise, raw emotion. They called it Operation Mindfire, a signal weapon made from human emotion fear. Rage, hope, love, sorrow all compressed into a living frequency. The ship's entire memory core was converted into a weapon. Every war, every loss, every scream, every dream, human history would become fire. Meanwhile, in the deep halls of the warship, things began to shift. Doors led to places that shouldn't exist. One room opened into a battlefield from Earth's past soldiers. Frozen in time, another room looked like a childhood memory. But the people had no faces. The enemy was getting stronger. It was learning then. The whispering turned to speaking. Voices echoed across the ship. "You shine too bright. You remember too much? We were forgotten. Let us remain." Renner stood in the bridge. "They're scared." Alara nodded. "They've never faced minds like ours." Mira added, "They want us silent. We'll give them the opposite." The plan was risky. They would send a small team down to the sealed gate below the planet. There, they would activate the signal core and broadcast the human memory weapon directly into the enemy hive. If it worked, the enemy would be overwhelmed, stunned, maybe even destroyed. If it failed, there would be nothing left to remember. The team was small. Commander Alara, 2 soldiers, and a drone carrying the memory core. Dropped into the tunnels, the path twisted and changed as they walked. Walls pulsed like living things. The statues now moved. One blinked. Another followed them without. Footsteps! Alara didn't look back. The drone floated silently. Humming with raw human history, billions of voices waited inside it. They reached the gate. It stood open now, behind it darkness. Endless and alive. Alara stepped forward. "You want our minds? Take them." She placed the core on the ground and activated the countdown. 60 seconds. Suddenly the shadows screamed, not like machines, not like beasts, like children, crying like mothers, mourning like worlds. Burning. The enemy came shapes made of smoke and thought. They reached toward the team, touched their memories. One soldier dropped his weapon. He saw his dead wife. She smiled, then turned to dust. Layer held her ground. 30 seconds. Her mind filled with images, her first mission, her brother's death, her childhood pet, They were stealing everything. But she remembered one thing they didn't: expect human rage. She focused her mind, gritted her teeth. I am not afraid of you. 10 seconds. A shadow rushed toward her. It took the form of her mother. Let go. Forget. Rest. Ilara screamed back. No. I remember everything. 0. The core exploded, not with fire, but with thought. A wave of memory ripped through the gate. Not just facts, but feeling, pain, love, music, death, childhood, war, birth, silence, screams, billions of lives. All at once the shadows twisted, screamed, cracked. They could not consume it. It was too much. Back on the Vindicator, Renner watched the energy spike on the ship's monitors. A shockwave of psychic light burst from the planet. The statues across the galaxy and moons. Asteroids, ruins all cracked. One by one the whispers stopped. Then silence. Real silence. Not dead silence. But peaceful. The team returned. Only Ilara and one soldier survived. The drone was gone. The gate was gone. And with it, the enemy hive, Mira reported. The signal is gone. The infection is stopped. Memory is clean. Renner asked, is it over? Later, Ilara sat in the observation deck. She stared at the stars. She could still hear echoes. Not of fear, but of memories. Her own. Her people's. Memories of fire. Memories that fought back. Captain Renner stood beside her. You did it, he said. Ilara shook her head. No, we did. Every voice they tried to take gave us the weapon to win. He nodded. They thought memory was weakness. She smiled softly. They forgot one thing. We are human, and we never forget. The warship Vindicator floated into a graveyard. They had arrived at the lost star system. Once home to 3 planets, now there were only ruins. Burned rock, dead satellites, shattered moons, and in the center of it all, something still stood. Station 13, a black metal structure, shaped like a ring. Slowly turning in the darkness, lights still flickered inside. Someone or something was still there, Commander. Ilara Voss looked at the screen. There should be nothing left here. Captain Aidan Renner nodded. But there is. Admiral Rourke stepped forward. I was part of the first mission to this system. Long ago, that station was never in the records. It was erased. Ilara asked, why? Rourke's face was hard, because something in that place knew our names. Before we told them. The crew sent a probe to scan the station. As it approached, a signal activated. Not a weapon. A greeting. The voice was female, human, soft. Welcome back. Terran vessel. Station 13 is prepared to complete the download. Final memory transfer ready. One soul remains. Ilara frowned. One soul? Mira, the ship's AI, ran the signal through translation. The station is storing the mind of a human. Someone survived here. Renner made the call. We board it. The away team arrived at Station 13. Its halls were dusty, lights blinking weakly. The walls were covered with words. In hundreds of languages. Human languages. And all of them repeated the same message. Don't forget us. In the core chamber, the team found a stasis pod. Inside, floating in clear blue liquid, was a man, very old, white hair. Eyes closed above him, a screen displayed his name. Dr. Leon Vex. Admiral Rourke gasped. That's impossible. He was part of the original exploration team. He died 200 years ago. Ilara checked the vitals. His body is failing, but his mind, it's active. The station's voice returned. Dr. Vex refused death. He chose memory. He remains. Ask and he will answer. The crew linked Mira to the station's mainframe. A voice came through Dr. Vex himself, old but strong. I remember you, not your faces, but your flame. You came here chasing silence. You woke the screams. Renner leaned in. What? Are they the forgotten? Vex answered. They are not creatures, they are the price. Every race that grows too fast, that reaches too far, leaves shadows behind. Thoughts that won't die. Pain that echoes. Memory that learns to think. Ilara asked the real question. Can they be stopped? Dr. Vex was silent for a long time. Then he replied, no, but they can be trapped. They explained the truth. Hundreds of years ago, Earth's early ships discovered an ancient machine in this system, a memory engine. They activated it, not knowing it was a prison, a place where thoughts that should never exist were locked away, but once opened. The memories escaped. They didn't need ships or armies. They spread through thought into dreams, machines, stories until the galaxy began to go silent. Dr. Vex had stayed behind, alone, to slow the spread. He uploaded his mind into the station, becoming its final guardian. For 200 years, he had fought to hold the last gate closed. But now, that gate was weakening. The scream you unleashed was heard, Vex said. And now, the last of the forgotten is coming. Suddenly, alarms rang inside Vindicator. Mira spoke with urgency. Captain, something is entering this system. From outside our galaxy, a rift appeared in space. A deep wound, black lightning, no stars behind it. Then something began to crawl out, not a ship, not a creature, a thought so massive, bent the light around it, a shape with 1,000 eyes, none of them real. Mira whispered, I am being rewritten. Wait, it's inside me. Back on the station, Dr. Vex shouted, you must destroy the gate. Seal this system. Lock it forever. If it follows you back to Earth. He stopped. His image on the screen began to shake. His voice turned into static. The station lights dimmed. And then, silence. Ilara looked at Renner. There's one option left. Renner nodded grimly. We use the core bomb. The core bomb was Vindicator's last weapon. It could collapse an entire system, turn space into a memory hole, but it would destroy everything. The station, the gate, the truth. Rourke spoke softly. If we don't, Earth won't get a second. Warning, the countdown began. The crew returned to the ship. Ilara looked back one last time at station 13. The lights flickered. Then one final voice came through. Not Vex. A child's voice. Don't forget me, please. Don't forget then. Light collapse. Silence. The Vindicator escaped, just in time. The star system folded into itself. Gone. No signals. No echoes. Nothing left. Myra confirmed. The memory field is sealed. The forgotten are quiet again. For now, Renner stood on the bridge. He looked at Earth's distant star. We survived, Ilara replied. But we remember now. Renner nodded. Good, because forgetting is how they win. The Vindicator returned to human space, damaged, burned, silent, but alive. Behind it, the sealed system of Station 13 was now just empty black dot. No stars, no signals. Nothing left, but something had come back with them. Something small, something quiet in the deep storage bay. A crewman found it, a shard of metal. It had no label, no weight, and didn't appear on scans. But when he touched it, he remembered a name he had never heard before, and a face that didn't exist. He screamed, and then forgot. Why? Commander Ilara Voss met with Earth Command. They stood in a white, clean room high above Earth's surface. She told them everything. The whispers, the hive, the memory weapon, Station 13, Dr. Vex, the forgotten. They listened, took notes, nodded, and when she was done, they sealed the room. A voice spoke from hidden speakers. Commander Voss, you are now classified under Echo. Protocol. Your memories will be reviewed, edited, possibly erased. Ilara stood up, angry. You want to forget it all? Again? An officer replied. It's not about forgetting. It's about control. Truth is dangerous. She looked at them. Dangerous to who? Us. Or the things waiting in the dark? Meanwhile, on Vindicator, Captain Aiden Renner made his own decision. He gathered the crew. Only 14 remained from the original 92. Some had died. Others had gone silent. Some had simply stopped sleeping, never woke up. He spoke. They want To bury it again, but we saw it. We remember. If it comes back, someone has to warn Earth. They all agreed. They would make copies of their logs, hide them, scatter them, across space. Across time, they called it. The memory. Weeks passed. Earth Command declared the mission inconclusive. The records were locked. Vindicator was grounded. LRA was reassigned to a research post on Luna Base. Renner disappeared. Some say he took a private ship to the edge of known space, looking for answers, looking for proof. But Earth had already changed. Something was wrong. Children spoke of shadows in their dreams. A man in New London painted a spiral on every wall in his house. He said it was to keep the thoughts out. An AI assistant on Mars began to speak in dead languages it was never programmed to know. A popular music track accidentally included a strange sound. It's a whisper underneath the beat. It made listeners remember things they never lived. The song was banned, but not before it reached over 9 billion plays. And then came the signal from inside Earth, a buried relay under the Atlantic Ocean. It activated after 300 years of silence. No one knew who built it. No one knew why it turned on. But when it did, it broadcasted one word: remember. On Luna Base, Elara stood under the stars. She could feel it now. The whispers were not gone. They had just gone deep into the code, into the dreams, into the stories people tell when they think no one is listening. The forgotten were now a part of humanity because we remembered them, and that's all they ever needed. Elara opened her old datapad. The final log of Admiral Rourke was still there. His last message. We tried to forget. But the more we forget them, the more they become something else. Lurking, waiting. Only when we accept the truth can we change the ending. Not by running, but by remembering with open eyes. Lara smiled sadly and sent the message to every open frequency, to every colony, to every ship still in the dark. A simple message. This is not the end. This is the beginning of memory. We are the race that remembers. They are watching. On Earth, a child woke from a dream. She didn't cry. She walked to the window and stared at the night sky. She whispered a word never spoken before. A name from the forgotten galaxy. And then she smiled. In the far edge of the universe, something stirred, something old, something hungry. It had heard the name again, and now it was awake. For thousands of years, the Veltrax galaxy had been silent. No signals, no ships, no life. Once long ago, this galaxy was full of civilizations. But one day everything stopped. The stars still burned, the planets still turned, but nothing moved. No one spoke. No one returned. Many explorers tried to enter. None came back. The galaxy became a graveyard. Until now, in the year 3127, human warship called the Vindicator entered the Veltrax galaxy. It was the largest ship Earth had ever built. It was a ship made for war, made for survival, made to conquer. Captain Aidan Renner, a man who had fought in 6 galactic wars, stood on the bridge. His eyes were calm, but alert. Beside him stood Commander Elara Voss, the ship's top strategist. She stared at the dark space ahead and whispered, "It's too quiet." They were not the first to come here, but they were the first to come prepared. The Vindicator carried over 200 trained soldiers, 12 drones, and an AI called Mira Machine Mind that could think faster than any human. As the ship entered the outer edge of the galaxy, something strange happened. A message came through. A deep, robotic voice echoed through the speakers. "This system is under quarantine. Do not approach." Captain Renner froze. "Who sent that?" Mira responded, "Unknown origin. The signal is ancient. Over 8,000 years old." Commander Elara frowned. "Play it again." "The system is under quarantine. Do not approach." Wasn't a threat. It was a warning. The crew stared at each other. Warnings from dead galaxies don't just play by themselves. Captain Renner gave the order. Keep moving. Scan the nearest planet. Planet 7X9, the first target, was a strange world. It had cities, but no people. Roads, but no travelers. Everything was made of crystal and metal. The buildings were untouched. It looked like the people had vanished in a single moment. The air was clean, the temperature perfect, but there were no animals.
House.
Not even insects, only silence. Renner sent a team of 5 soldiers down to the surface. They wore black armor and carried plasma rifles. Their mission? Explore, collect data, and return within 3 hours. The landing team walked through the glass-like streets of the city. Statues stood tall non-human figures with wide eyes and sharp arms. Symbols were carved into the walls, glowing faintly. The leader of the team, Sergeant Cole, said through his cums, "This place feels wrong." One of the soldiers, Maria, found an old satellite dish buried under rubble. She wiped off the dust and found a metal plate. On it were 3 words, written in Old Galactic Common. "Do not wake THM Cole. Reported it to the ship captain." Renner's voice came through. "Who is them?" No one answered. The planet was giving no answers. Just more questions. Then the signal cut out. "Back on the ship," Mira reported. "I've lost contact with the ground team." Captain Renner stood up. "Get them back now." Mira tried to reconnect. Static, noise, then a scream. Not human, not machine. Something else. It echoed through the cums. Just one long, distorted scream, then silence again. Everyone on the bridge went still. Commander Alara looked at Renner. "Sir, we have to pull them out." But Renner didn't move. His instincts told him something worse was happening. He looked at Mira. "Any energy signals from the planet?" Mira's voice sounded slower than before. "Yes, something. Right. Waking. Up." Down on the planet, only 2 soldiers returned to the shuttle. They were shaking. One had blood on his armor. The other kept whispering, "It's watching. It's watching." Maria was missing. The last thing her helmet recorded was her turning toward a dark alley, then her scream. They found her helmet the next day, sitting neatly on a stone bench. The inside of the helmet had deep scratches, as if something tried to claw its way out. Captain Renner reviewed the footage again and again. He zoomed in. In the last frame, just before the camera cut out, there was a figure standing behind Maria. Not visible, not clear. Just a shadow in the shape of something. Tall. And wrong, the crew was scared. They had weapons. Yes, but weapons are made for enemies you can see. This was something else, something old, something that had waited in silence. And now, it wasn't silent anymore. The screams had begun, and humanity had just entered their galaxy. The crew of the Vindicator didn't sleep that night. Maria was gone. Her helmet sat in the center of the warship's lab, locked in a clear case. The scratches on the inside were deep. Almost desperate, Captain Aidan Renner watched the recordings again. The scream.
Ow.
The shadow, and then dash. Nothing. No blood. No body. No trace. Only silence. Commander Alara Voss studied the satellite found near. The ruins, the message on the metal plate haunted her. "Do not wake THM," but who were they? And where were they now? Suddenly, Maratha ship's AI spoke in a quiet tone. Unknown signal detected. Origin. Planet 7X9. Multiple pulses. Organic. Dot. An artificial. Captain Renner stood up. "Organic. Is there life?" Mira answered, uncertain. "It moves, but not like life. It thinks, but not like us." At sunrise, the captain sent a second team to the surface. This time, it included scientists, drones, and Commander Alara herself. She didn't want to go, but she needed answers. Her boots hit the dusty crystal ground. The city was still. Too still. They moved through the empty streets, scanning every structure, recording every sound at first. There was nothing. Then the whispers began. Soft at first, a sound like wind moving through glass. But there was no wind. Whispers grew louder, words in a language no one understood. But each team member heard something different. One soldier heard his dead brother's voice. Another heard someone calling her name. From inside the ground, Ilara heard a child laughing. She didn't have children. They checked their helmets. The systems were clean. No signals. No tricks. The voices were real but came from inside their own minds. Back on the ship, Mira warned the captain. Mental contamination detected. The planet is not dead. It's dreaming. Captain Renner stared at the hologram of the city. It's not dreaming, he said. It's watching us. On the surface, the team reached a large square filled with statues. With long arms, wings, or multiple eyes. But something was wrong. Ilara pointed to one of them. That one wasn't here before. Cole, the team leader, looked confused. Are you sure? Ilara checked her scan history. The statue hadn't been in the square 10 minutes ago. Now it stood in the center. Facing them, Cole raised his weapon. We're leaving. As they returned to the shuttle, one of the soldiers, Juno, froze. He stared at a dark alley. He whispered, She's there. Ilara turned. Who? Maria, he said. She's waving at me. Ilara saw nothing. The alley was empty, but Juno dropped his rifle and stepped forward. Ilara. She's saying it's safe. He walked into the alley, seconds later. The whispers stopped, and Juno was gone. The team returned to the ship in silence. Captain Renner was furious. No more landings. No more risks. But Ilara disagreed. This isn't just a ghost world. Something is alive. Something that pulls people in. Renner looked at her. Then we pull out. We destroy it if we must. But Mira interrupted again. New discovery. Underneath the city, a massive structure. Hidden, buried, locked. Ilara narrowed her eyes. A prison? Mira answered, unknown, but it pulses, like a heart. That night, no one slept again. Even inside the warship, crew members began hearing whispers. Some cried in their rooms. Others locked themselves in silence. The ship's lights flickered. Mira started repeating strange messages. They never left. She is calling them. The silence is breaking. Captain Renner knew something was wrong with the AI. But it wasn't a malfunction. It was contagion, not a virus, not a bug. But thought infection, Ilara went to the medical bay. The two surviving soldiers from the first team were still there. One of them, Corporal Hayes, was awake now. His eyes were dull, his voice flat. They're inside the walls, he whispered. Inside our minds, they don't need ships. They just need to be remembered. Ilara leaned closer. Who are they? Hayes whispered. They were forgotten. That was the only way to stop them. Now we see them again, ... and they see us. Then he screamed, loud, sharp, painful. Every light in the room went black for 2 seconds. When they came back on, Hayes was gone. Nothing left but his bed. In a smear of black dust, Captain Renner called an emergency meeting. We came to explore. We found something worse than a weapon, worse than a war. Ilara spoke softly. They feed on memory, fear, thoughts. That's why the galaxy went silent. They had to erase everything. Mira confirmed it. Long ago, this galaxy made a choice. Forget. Or be devoured. Renner looked out at the stars. So what happens now? Mira replied. Now, they're waking up.